This podcast is brought to you by Undercurrent Athletics and Hard Knocks Gym, both located at the corner of 52nd Street and Broadway. We are also brought to you by Maceo Spice and Import Company, located at 2706 Market Street. For sponsorship and advertising information, please contact Galveston Island Podcast at gmail.com.
All right, folks, we are back with another podcast. It is the 20th of July, 2017, and we just came back from a City Council special workshop. I'm here with Clint Stevens. He is a representative of the GMPA. Clint, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Clint Stevens. I'm a GMPA representative. Currently, I'm the treasurer for the association. I also serve as a GMPA spokesman.
So we're not going to go through the regular podcast intro because yesterday we did a special edition one, so we're just going to jump right into it. So today we went to a special city council meeting that was meant to the city was talking about the budget, and they introduced the idea or entertained the GMPA to come do what under the public was under reception a presentation. Correct. And so what was let's just start where the GMPA was going to start with, like, what's your mission goal? What were you guys going to accomplish being there today at having the city invite you?
Well, the first thing we kind of wanted to do was just address some misnomers about what GMPA does, who we are. So I would start by saying that GMPA was founded in 1953. We represent not only the interests of police officers, but we also represent the interests of the community as a whole. The Galveston Municipal Police Association, we're a 501c4 nonprofit organization. We contribute thousands annually to multiple charity organizations throughout the city. Yaga's Children's Fund is one, Special Olympics, GISD Back to School Drive. We participate in all those. So to say that we're exclusively a collective bargaining agent would be a bit of a misnomer.
So you guys do more than just represent the police as
Correct.
A union. You do public outreach, or when you try to do public outreach, are there any boundaries that you have to go through with, let's say, like department heads and the city administration?
I think kind of what you're getting at is whether or not it's a violation of city charter for us to address openly with city council, and there's no indication of that. We're not our contract is, we have a 3-year contract with the city of Galveston. That term is not up until September of 2019, so we have 2 more years before it's up. So we're not out to bargain. Really, our sole intent and purpose was just to educate not only city council but also the public.
Yeah. So for anyone listening, today the GMPA tried to speak to the city council, right?
Correct.
And what were some of the things you were going to tell them? Because you guys kind of got railroaded by the city attorney saying that it's not on the agenda, and sometimes you can't put things, say things that are on the agenda. But what were you guys trying to say?
Right, and that's disheartening. However, I would like to commend the city that we have seen them step up. It looks like we are going to get a budgeted increase in manpower, and 16 more officers will help. So
is that what you guys were looking for primarily, or?
Well, that's pretty close. We were looking around 170. If they get all 16 positions, now mind you, 8 of those are based on a grant. But if we do get all 16 positions, that would bring us up for our authorized strength all the way up to 168, which is really close to where we want to be. So we have to commend them on those efforts at least. As far as what we wanted to express to City Council, I guess the bit there was a lot of back and forth about crime statistics, and first off, you have to understand that crime statistics, there's an incentive for crime statistics to be manipulated by a city, because obviously they want the crime to appear low. So keep that in mind. However, I'm not saying that that's going on with our city. In fact, I would go ahead and concede that our stats are probably pretty close to accurate, if not accurate. So with that in mind, what we want people to still understand is that using the last FBI UCR stats, what we saw is that we're still, in overall crime, we're still 46% higher than the rest of the nation. And, you know, we want to have the best police department in the United States if we can have that. And, you know, our research shows that in safe communities, you have what's called a 60-40 split. So that means that 60% of an officer's time on a day-to-day basis is spent doing proactive things. That could be community policing, that could be out patrolling in the neighborhoods. It could be simple things like a burglary detail to target specific crimes, running traffic in a school zone so that you have that proactive enforcement. And those are some things that, due to the staffing levels being what they are currently, that we haven't been able to realize.
Okay, I just want to start by asking a few questions that I kind of had mulled over, and some people wanted to ask as well. So, how many officers are employed?
Currently, the latest number that I have is 132. That's sworn officers, mind you. That's not total staff. We do have, I believe, 19 cadets currently also, but they're not yet sworn officers.
And how many? So let's just say, like on a random Thursday morning, or Thursday you guys are at 12-hour shifts, right?
Uh-huh.
How many guys do you have out on patrol, and how many are you required to have out on patrol?
Department's minimum staffing number is 14, so the department strives to get 14 officers out on the street. Often that doesn't happen. For instance, yesterday I was told we had 8 officers out on the street for the entire island. And I think that should be concerning to citizens for a number of reasons. You know, you look at increased response times. I mean, when you call 911, how fast do you want an officer? You know, quick. So what happens is that you go to the back of the queue. And that translates all the way up. That's not.
So as soon as they come in, it's not like some. I mean, some do, I guess, get priority if it's like an active crime, but so some don't. They get put on the end line. Right.
And it's, you know, and that's to say, and I don't mean to I guess that's not to scare people. You know, I mean, if you call police, we're going to get there. What we're just saying is that there's the possibility that, you know, due to the staffing levels being what they are, it may take a little bit longer for an officer to get there than it normally would.
Do you have the average response time for a, let's just say, like a regular disturbance call?
I don't. What they are is they're prioritized, and city administration or department administration would probably be better suited to give you exact numbers. I don't have the exact numbers. I would say that, you know, probably for a priority 1 response, and that's like, you know, if you call police and say, hey, you know, someone's trying to kill me, you're looking probably 5 to 7 minute response time, which isn't too bad. Now, if it's a summer day and there's, you know, 1 million people on the island, there could be multiple calls like that coming in. So it could substantially affect that.
Do you know how many calls the department gets a day? Because at that meeting we were talking about calls, the number of calls coming in. What do you see statistically from where you sit? How many calls do we get a day?
Per day, it varies. What we found, we got an average, and what it came out to is that we have 1 call coming in about every 7.5 minutes. We have an officer being dispatched to some sort of call about every 7.5 minutes. We run about, and it fluctuates again, but we run about 68,000 calls for service every year. So we have approximately 68 officers that are assigned to patrol, and now that varies due to you know.
So that's 1,000 calls an officer.
Yeah, 1,000 calls per officer, and that number fluctuates too. Some days, you know, you have injuries, officers are you know, retention issues. So we don't always have 68, but that's an approximate number, and that's total patrol, and that's spread out over 4 shifts, each 12 hours long. And what I'd like to add is that this isn't just, it's, you know, well, you could say, well, okay, so you have 68 officers on patrol. Why don't you just allocate more officers to patrol, because you have all these other officers, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what you need to keep in mind is that this trickles down into every area of the department. So, for instance, say criminal investigations, that's your detectives, all right? what we've seen is that right now there's a 7-month backlog because we don't have enough detectives. So if you were a victim of a property crime, let's say your car was broken into, and even if you have good solvability factors, and what I mean by that is to say, if let's say there's fingerprints on the door, if you see fingerprints on the window, you got surveillance footage, you have a good suspect. It's still going to be approximately 7 months before a detective is able to free up and pick up the phone and call you. To us, we're just saying we think we can do a better job than that, and it's going to take additional staffing to do that.
Is that just going to have to be detectives, or is it going to? I mean, that's kind of. 7 months. That's how many cases is that? Like backlogged.
So it varies, but
is that disheartening to? People hearing this, is that disheartening to people making the calls and saying, hey, my car got broken into. Hey, my car's stolen. Because some of the statistics that I saw there, and I had questions, were these are the crime numbers, and it's just they're in 2015 they were going down.
Right.
What do you do when what do you do when people don't report that, where they say the police aren't going to do anything about where I'm just playing the devil's advocate.
Right.
The police are going to say, or citizens are going to say, well, the Galveston PD, they're not going to do anything about it anyway, so why am I even going to report it? Or is that
well? And I'd like to just put that out there, right? Don't ever think that, hey, GPD's too swamped. They don't have enough people. I'm just not going to call them because my incident's not important, or I don't think they're going to solve it. The only way that we can really justify it, we have to be able to show that, hey, look, we have these reports coming in, and we don't have enough people to investigate them. So if people stop calling us, those go away. And the citizens have a right for to have the best police service possible, and they should accept nothing less. That's their tax dollars are spent on police. The largest item in the budget, in fact, is police.
I know on Facebook, I think it was the city that posted the survey that they did. They were trying to get the whole island to participate, and only 600 or 605 people participated out of the whole island.
Right.
That's like 1.2%.
Right. If that.
How is it for you, the GMPA? How are you trying to do more public outreach, and the city's trying to do it as well? But I'm seeing it as it's hard to get traction on the ground to make people actually care and say, hey, if you're going to be part of the problem, you can sit there and do nothing. But if you want to be part of the solution, you can stand up and say something.
Right, and you bring up a good point, because ultimately, that's to have any effect on this issue. That's what it's going to take. It's the public, and what does the public want? What's the priority for the public? Everybody wants a safer community, I hope. But what's our number one priority? And is it attracting tourism, or is it having a safe community? And I think the residents probably,
because a lot of people who live here now who aren't from the island are they visited as they were kids and young adults, and they said, man, I love that town, Galveston. I'm gonna come back and
right.
Get my little nest egg here.
Yeah, and I don't want to discount tourists, because that may drive us crazy, but ultimately our revenue, a lot of it comes from tourism. So obviously the city revolves around that, so we don't discourage people from coming here. And
now a lot of the crime coming in here, is that people coming from off the island, or is it also in the off season? Is it included with some of the people here?
Well, it's a mix. It's not this isn't solely. I will say that there are quite a few of the crimes being committed by people that are from that aren't residents of the island. But there is a bulk of it that also comes from within.
So I talked to another one of your colleagues, and he said that you guys used to be on 8-hour shifts.
Correct.
And you moved to the 12-hour shifts in September, and that was also brought up in the city council meeting. Has that posed any problems on staffing, and what shifts? What's a better shift policy for the department that you believe is going to work easier?
I don't necessarily think that it's the 12-hour shift in general that poses the problem, because if it's, if the shift's adequately staffed, you're not going to run into those problems. And we did make that switch. I guess it's been almost a year, and I think the majority of the officers, at least from what I've seen, the last polling that we did showed that the majority of the officers were in favor of it. It was a bit of a contentious issue within the department, but I think the majority of officers have been happy with the 12-hour shifts. It does allow for more time off, which is difficult at times.
Now, going back to the meeting, you guys were supposed to have a PowerPoint presentation, correct?
We did have a presentation prepared. It wasn't I'm sorry.
Okay.
It wasn't a PowerPoint presentation, but we did have a presentation prepared. So it was a little disheartening that that we weren't able to speak about those points. But
what were the points you wanted to speak on?
Well,
if you were to give the presentation, I mean, you can go ahead and give it to me now, and then.
Well, the first thing was kind of what I already went into, was just what GMPA is, who we are, who we represent. Which it's not just the officers, we represent the community, but it's important to remember that we're part of a democratic process. I mean, we're a democratic republic. And our elected officials are elected to represent us. So it's important that we're able to have a dialogue with them. So when we can't, such as in the fashion that occurred today, it's pretty disheartening. What I really just wanted to say, and I know what Jeff and Joe wanted to talk about, were, to start with, what the GMPA is, who we are, what we do, who we represent, and then also why we were there. And there was an editorial ran by Michael Smith in the Galveston Daily News that I felt was a little unfair. We were invited to come speak to City Council. It wasn't, this wasn't our idea. We were invited to come speak, and that's why we were there. And all we wanted to do was educate not only council, but we wanted to educate the public as well on all of these issues. And we wanted to talk about staffing. There was a lot during the presentation about staffing numbers and crime statistics, and we wanted to be able to address each one of those subjects. And unfortunately, there was a difference in opinion with the city attorney. Felt that that wasn't the appropriate forum to do that. I think that's unfortunate. I'd like to see the Attorney General's opinion on that. I think he would probably disagree. So.
Well, the good thing about this is we don't have an agenda, so we can talk about anything we like.
Great.
So one of the two biggest things that people look when they come down to buy a house are crime statistics and the schools. But I really want to focus on crime. I mean, even on Facebook, people are posting on, hey, this is happening, cars getting broken into. This is the fourth time this happened. Right. They opened my door just to see what they could get. How does like a regular person go about and how do they make it known to the city that there is a crime issue, and not just to the department, because you guys have. I think it's a 2-year lag from all the statistics you get that have to go to the FBI and to get actual statistics out. So the 16 statistics will probably be at the end of this year, right? Right. So how do they combat it, and how do they alert that their city council members and just the city administration that the crime's going up,
right?
That the citizens are witnessing it and experiencing it.
Well, and we saw a lot of that on social media, and you look on Facebook and you see that there's a lot of conversations out there. Vehicles being broken into, and originally when we looked at, we thought, well, is this just anecdotal? Is this people's personal experiences, or is there actually an issue there? So we went and we pulled the latest stats that we could find from OSSI. And what we found is that there was an 18% increase, specifically regarding vehicle crimes. And it seems to be, that's auto burglary, UUMV, which is theft of an auto. So, it wasn't only anecdotal evidence, and there is some validity there. Now, going back to what I said earlier, is that you can there's a number of different ways you can interpret statistics, but one thing that we can all see clearly is that Galveston is still 46% higher than the national average. And that's concerning to people because you mentioned one of the things they look at is crime stats. Well, AreaVibes.com is a consortium of crime statistics, and they help people choose neighborhoods. Well, they rated Galveston an F on crime, and that's the first thing that you see when you click on Galveston, and that's going to be disheartening to somebody that may have a career here on the island, even a police officer or a firefighter or any. It doesn't matter where they work. If they're looking to move to the island, that's the first thing that's going to jump out to them. So now getting back to what people can do. So the biggest thing that I would tell them is that they need to be proactive. And because what it's going to take to change these things is the public has to be vocal. And that means that they need to send an email to the city manager. They need to carbon copy city council and say, this is the crime that we're experiencing, and ask the city, what are they doing about it? What steps are we taking? And once again, that's not to say that the city's doing nothing and sitting on their hands, because obviously we saw during the meeting, and I was really happy to see that they did step up in certain cases. But has
that always been the case? When I know some of the numbers, I was hearing other people say, well, that's great, that's awesome. Let's see if they hold up to their part. Mm-hmm. What have they come to you with and said about any kind of negotiations? Because you guys have tried to be more open, honest, and transparent with your communications with the public and trying to reach out to the city. What have they responded to you prior to the city council special workshop?
As far as their response to our requests, or
mm-hmm. and what have you guys requested? I know you've requested more manpower, and I mean the manpower and pay kind of go hand in hand. Right. I mean, if you're off the bat, working like a dog and you don't want to put 25 years in and get a bad reward, right? Or not a bad reward, a decent, something that you can work up the road, and live in Dickinson and work there and get a better pay and better rewards.
Right, and that's what we don't want to see. Is we don't want to see officers be lured away, from more competitive agencies in the area, and that's something that unfortunately, has happened. We lost a cadet very recently from not this academy, but the one right before it quit. Right at the end of the academy, when he was ready to put his badge on, he up and went to League City, who they offer a more lucrative pay package, but that's kind of getting away from the point a little bit, because we're in a contract right now, and I don't anticipate that anything's going to change on that front. And September 2019, we'll be looking at at renegotiating a new contract, and wages is obviously something that we'll talk about at that time.
Okay, so right now you're just focusing on educating the public.
Right. We want the public to be aware of, from our standpoint, not just which is what makes it disheartening when we're not able to speak to address something. We just want the public to know the facts. That's it. Transparency is I guess is kind of the word of the day. Mm-hmm. And if we're not allowed to speak, then what is it that city management is afraid of, so to speak? I mean, is it the truth?
So with regards to speaking to city council and letting the letting the public know what's going on, what are some of the issues that the police are trying to voice besides crime? What are some of the issues?
Well, most of those are things that we discuss one-on-one with the chief of police. But we do have our biggest three, I guess, is that we want to see a focused city management, number one, which is we want to feel like city management is making public safety their number one priority, because having a safe community is, I hope, what everybody wants ultimately at the end of the day. All right. The second thing is manpower, and I think we saw a big step in the right direction today. I hope we get all 16 positions, because that's huge. And then third is public safety and officer safety as it relates to crime. And when you see, officers, the understaffing, it's not only dangerous to the public, but it's also dangerous for the officers when they don't. If I'm on a call at 61st and Broadway, and the nearest officer, and I get assaulted, and I'm getting assaulted by somebody, and the nearest officer that can assist me is in Jamaica Beach, that's a long way to come to get some help, to have the nearest available officer come from, and having appropriate staffing levels, specifically to patrol. And we've heard numbers thrown out, like, they had 50 officers working this weekend, and we're talking about officers that are available for patrol. That means that when a call comes over the radio, these are guys that pick up the phone and respond to those calls, or pick up the mics, not phone, but they're available to respond to calls. So once again, just to hit that again, all right, focus city management, making public safety their number one priority. All right, manpower, which I think we saw a huge step in the right direction today, so hats off to them for that. And lastly, public safety and officer safety as it relates to crime.
Okay. And so with the good foot forward that the city presented, do you see any more anything happening with the GMPA in city with regards to like openness, transparency, and communicate, just open line of communication that you guys can go and like, hey, knock on their door and say, hey, this is what our officers are, having problems with, or, something of that.
Well, one of the great things I think that came away from today's meeting was that, we did have the city manager go out on a limb and say that he'd be happy to meet with us every 2 weeks. And, originally we had just been meeting with the chief of police. So I think that's huge in itself. The fact that, that's something that we haven't experienced in the past. And I think we'll go a long way towards, removing a lot of the clouds.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate you coming out and speaking with us. Is there anything else you'd like to say or add?
No, I don't think so. I just, I want to. One thing I would like to do is just, we saw an overwhelming response from the citizens of Galveston today coming out to the meeting, and that was something you don't see every day. And a lot of times, law enforcement, especially in this day and age, feels that the public doesn't necessarily have their back and doesn't support them as much as they would like. And I think the citizens of Galveston proved them wrong today on that, and they showed up in force, and it was a good feeling. Okay, well, on a lighter note, we're going to be doing a podcast with Galveston Island Brewery next week, so stay tuned. But thank you, Mr. Stevens, absolutely, for coming out, and thank you to the GMPA. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks, appreciate it.